evening. Welcome to the 2019 Fall Financial Town Meeting. Would you please rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance to the flag? Okay, we'll try it this way. Am I really going to hold this all night? Okay. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I approach them to turn the speaker?
Okay, I will declare that we have a quorum for the meeting, and I'll ask the town clerk to read the warrant.
Greetings. Pursuant to Chapter 3, Title 45, you are hereby required to Greetings. Pursuant to Chapter 3, Title 45, you are hereby required to post at least 7 days before the 7th day of May, AD 2019, written notification in 3 or more places in the town of Worcester, Rhode Island, notifying and warning the electors of the town of Worcester qualified to vote upon the proposition to impose a tax or the expenditures of money to assemble in the town meeting at Captain Isaac Payne School Auditorium in the town of Worcester on the 7th day of May 2019 at 7:00 p.m. for the purpose of ordering a tax to be levied and assessed on the rateable property of the town and the inhabitants thereof for the payment of the town debts and interest for the town inhabitants thereof. Payments of the town proposition of the state tax for the support and maintenance of the poor, for the building, repairing, and amending of highways, for the building, repairing, and amending of bridges, for all the improvements in any manner deemed fit by any property belonging to the town, for all charges, expenses whatsoever arising within the town, whether incidental or not, to the above, and there you go, and the foster of and to the support of the town's share of Worcester Regional School District for authorizing expenditures of the Capital Reserve Fund for anticipation notes and bonds and for any other all purposes authorized by law and to transact such other businesses as may legally come before us tonight. Carried on my hand the 25th of April, AD 2019 for the town of Worcester.
Thank you, Sue. Okay, before we get started, just a couple of things. I'd like to thank, on behalf of the citizens of the town, I'd like to thank all of the board and committee folks, many of whom are in the room, I guess, for their work on the budget. It's a long process. Also, the town council, the department heads, and the staff in the town hall. I'd also like to recognize the Payne School custodial staff who takes care of setting things up for us. We very much appreciate that. And although they're never in the room when I say this, the Board of Canvassers who puts a lot of work into any meeting such as this. And I'd also like to mention, thank the school committee for remedying the sad situation that we had with our American and Rhode Island state flag the last few meetings I held in here. I'm very pleased to see them properly displayed this evening. Thanks a bunch. I'm now going to go, one more thing. I'll try to keep going. There is no topic on the agenda tonight officially regarding the police station and its building committee, but I know there are people that are interested and concerned about it, so I offered Joe Walsh, who is chairman of the building committee, a chance to just briefly address the meeting and let you know what's going on. Mr. Walsh? There you are.
Where do you want? Right here?
I think you'll project pretty well with the microphone right there if you want to use it.
So, space back here. Good evening, my name is Joe Walsh, I'm the chairman of the Foster. You gotta do something on that, Joe. Maybe I don't need that. So I'm the chairman of the Foster Police Department Building Committee. We've been meeting since 2016 now on potentially building the police department. So the town council asked me here to explain to anybody where we are, how we got here, and where we're going. So sometime back in 2016, in March, the town council decided to form a police department building committee to investigate if it was worthwhile to build a police department and all those kinds of things. The committee has looked at many different options. From how it all started was before the committee was formed, there was a 10,000 square foot, $4 million police station proposed. You probably heard about that. That's kind of what got me lit on fire, and that's how I got involved. Over the period of the past 3 years, we've looked at merging with Situate. We've looked at building into the existing town hall. We've looked at the church up on the corner of 94. And now currently we're looking at possibly doing something with the library and merging properties or something to that effect. Something that's a little larger than the police department building committee the chair is charged with, but that's something we're looking at. So currently we have 2 police department designs. One is identical to the one in Situate, because that was our plan if they took to do what they're doing. And then we also redesigned last year into I'll call it a 2-level, even though one is down below, which has a much smaller footprint. So now we met with the Historical Society to see what their opinions are, and we're trying to figure out if they have any jurisdiction. So far, from what we can tell, the historical people don't have necessarily jurisdiction to tell us what we can and cannot do unless we get grants and funding from a state or federal agency. We're not 100% sure on that. The solicitor is going to, that sound about right? Okay.
All right.
So right now, we don't know of any great grants out there, but we're looking into that. And I've got a message out to Jack Reed's office, and if something tremendous comes, then it may be worth thinking about that, whether we would want to do match what the historical people say, which is basically when I met with them, they didn't really want to see a 2-story building and basically be cut into the hill behind the police department. So even though half is down below grade, it looks 2-story. And that's really where we're at now. So we're at this point where we don't have a number to give you. So there's a referendum right now. The town council will decide on a special referendum when we get there. We're just going through the survey process. We are now trying to determine if the septic will be shared with the town hall and whatever library or whatever ends up over there. We're hoping for some good things to come out of the Foster Oversight Committee, which is the town council's put together. As far as I know, we're going right from that. So, which is represented, they explain much better than I can, but planning, zoning, police, library, building committee, all that kind of stuff, to try to get a better handle on what you should be doing as a town, rather than these kind of sporadic things that happen and build this and do that. It really need a better feasibility plan than what's going on. And that's pretty much where we're at today. So I don't know if that addressed everything you think we need to address or something
The
particular.
Historic Society is the state historic, not
State historic.
Right.
Yeah, as far as I know, we
It's
have.
not our local preservation.
No. It's a state historic society. And anybody have any questions or want to allow tomato at?
Are you looking at other locations or just strictly in the town center?
So the challenge is, I wouldn't say we're not looking at it. We've looked at other locations already. So the town owns the property over there. So the very narrow scope that was given to the town council, and that was to build a cost-effective police station and that. So taking a property off the tax roll, like for instance the church, that was one that was suggested. And it's a great location, right? Maybe not great for citizens to get in, but police obviously can get in and out of their place. But the problem is you're taking a property off the tax roll with over the proposed use of the building, say a public building 50, 60 years is the expected anticipated use of a public building, you would actually lose about half of what the new police department would be cost just in lost tax revenue. So when you already own the property, that kind of makes sense to use the property you have. The talks with the library are potentially going into more of an area around 94 and stuff. But again, I mean, that's what you guys will decide, right? Ultimately. So it would be great to have a town where everything is centered in the town. You drive through Foster, you see a Foster Center. That costs money, right? That means abandoning where we are and doing all of that. Personally, I think on the conservative side of me says that's a bad idea. But if the people think that's the way to go, but we'll look at any location there is. But right now, we spent literally years getting to where we are. But now we have a plan that we can plunk anywhere we want. So if there was a different property, we could certainly do something if that makes sense. Okay. Yes.
And you mentioned you had looked over the Situate talk,
Sure.
going with the Situate police station. What kind of talks did you have with them as a committee about
coming to the conclusion that that's not where you wanted to go. When did you meet with them? When did you talk with them? And why did you come to a conclusion that that wasn't feasible?
First, we talked to him because you mentioned it at the meeting. So I got it on the agenda of the Situate Town Council. I have the date, so in case there's any question there.
Are you talking about the meeting when I was on the council and we met with Situate?
You met after I met with them. So I met.
And then we were going to discuss moving forward, and the committee was supposed to reach out to them. And so I'm asking, did you follow up on that?
No, it's actually the town council was supposed to, you guys met, and what's in the minutes? The minutes say that Situate had no interest at that time. The council then changed, but it was in the town council thing, not us. When I met with them, they said, we're meeting with your town council, which is what happened.
Convenient.
Okay, I want to keep this fairly short. So any other direct questions for Mr. Walsh? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming, filling us in.
No problem.
Okay, I'd like to read my usual conduct of the meeting. Most of you have heard this before, but I think it bears reading as a reminder and to have everybody on the same page. So to vote, you must be wearing a wristband issued by the Board of Canvassers and be seated in the two main sections of the room. Voters seated on heating units will not be counted. Guess we're okay tonight. Don't sit down, Gordon. A voter who leaves the room during the meeting must surrender their voter affirmation slip to the three canvassers and retrieve it upon their return. Non-voting members of the audience must be seated in the section to my left. You are reminded not to speak when a voice vote is called for. The budget will be considered department by department. Motions to adopt a department budget will be in order. Except for those filed with the town clerk at least 7 days before this meeting, motions to add a line item to the budget will not be in order, and there were no such requests received. Motions to amend the department budget by a specific amount, either an increase or a decrease, will be in order. Amendments to a motion, if any, must be decided before the vote on the main motion can take place. Voters may address questions to the moderator using the microphone in the center aisle. Please identify yourself when you begin to speak. No voter may speak a second time until all those wishing to do so have done so. Motions to move a question will be in order only if the moderator determines that there has been sufficient opportunity for discussion. Voting will be by voice, standing vote, or machine ballot at the moderator's discretion. For a motion to prevail on a voice or standing vote, a majority, that is more than half of the voters present, must cast their vote in the affirmative. There are two exceptions. Motions to move a question require an affirmative vote by 2/3 of those present. A machine ballot may be compelled by an affirmative vote of 1/5 of those present. Such motions will be in order when the period for discussion is closed by the moderator. Those wishing to abstain during a standing vote will need to leave the room and return after the vote. Please check out with the canvassers and back in when you return. For a motion to prevail on a machine ballot, a majority of the votes cast in the machine must be in the affirmative. And as a reminder, political rhetoric, innuendo, and personal attacks will not be allowed. Are there any questions? Okay. I'd now like to provide an opportunity for the Town Council President, Denise DeFranco, to make some comments on the budget they have prepared.
Thank you. I'd just like to take a moment to introduce my fellow council members. Chris Stone, Heidi Rogers, Joe Cardillo. Cheryl Hawes is not attending tonight, she's out of town. I'd also like to introduce Kelly Russ, our treasurer, Patty Moreau, our tax assessor, Sue Sprague, our deputy town clerk, and you know Sue Dillon, our town clerk, and Mr. Torgy, Mark Torgy, is our town solicitor. Chief David Wright is also in attendance. If I've missed anybody else, I'm sorry. I'm trying to, let's see, Nancy DeLear back there. I would like to take a moment to thank Kelly Russ for working with the department heads and the council to make this a little easier and to present the best budget we think possible. Please take time to read the narrative that's in the beginning of your budget. Kelly spent a lot of time working on that, and I think it explains a lot as we go along in the budget. Some of the things I wanted to also point out is that the school department, the school committee created this document for you, which I think is very nice. and I want to thank Kathleen Swanson for doing that. As you go along in the budget, you'll see that we have come to an agreement, if you will, with the engineering board, which consists of the 3 fire departments and the ambulance corps, that we will make every attempt for this budget and future budgets to give them or to allocate to them $100,000 to $135,000, and they will determine where that money will be spent as far as what department needs what truck. They will create the RFP, they will sign off on it, and when we come to an agreement on that purchase, they will also sign off on that. So that's something a little different we're trying this year, and hoping that it will continue in future years. One of the things I wanted to point out is when you see the general government page, it has increased significantly. No, that is not as a result of Mrs. Dillon asking for a lot. The budget format has changed a bit. We have purchased a new accounting system so that we can be better prepared when the state is asking for their information. It's supposed to make it easier. The transition was a little difficult, and as a result, there's more things on the general government that normally weren't there. For instance, the electricity and heating, that is there. The Providence Water, we've made a large chunk of money to there, more than what they're requiring, so that we don't have that balloon payment at the end. Am I missing anything else? Did I cover?
Insurance.
Oh, the insurance, yes, the insurance is also on that. So those were located in other parts of the budget in the past. Now it's been put on to Mrs. Dillon's, no fault to Mrs. Dillon's. The other thing I wanted to point out is that the council did vote for a 4-to-1 vote. Ms. Forrest voted no as to a stipend for the council. For the past 6 years, I think it is, the council has not received a stipend. We had much discussion about that, and you will see, I'm not sure, it is on the general government, you'll see an increase of $9,125. That divided by 5 is approximately $1,835 for each of the council members. It was felt that we put a lot of time in, we spend a lot of time. We were the only council, or one of the only few councils that did not receive a stipend. So after much debate, it was a 4-to-1. I will say Ms. Forrest did vote no. The other thing that I want to point out is on page 14, you'll see the cemetery fund. There's been much discussion in past years in regards to the cemetery fund. For those of you that are not aware of that, there is a law that says we could only spend the interest, we could not spend the principal. We, along with other towns and cities, have dipped into that principal. We need to recoup that, if you will. So we have put $450, which would be approximately the interest that they lost on, or that cemetery fund has lost. So we've put back $450 with this budget to help offset that interest. Is there anything else that any of the council members would like to point out?
Great job.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Denise. We're also be considering the school committee budget tonight. I see that we have a plethora of school committee folks here and finance people. So when we get to that, if there are questions, they'll be happy to answer any questions at that time. Just a couple comments before we start. Make sure you understand what you're voting on. I see a lot of familiar faces and I see some not so familiar faces. That may be my memory fading, but nonetheless, don't be bashful about asking if you're not sure what a particular vote is about. I would much rather take a minute and explain it again for a second or third time if need be, so that when you stick your hand up or cast your ballot or whatever we're doing, that you know what's happening. And also, I always remind people, stay for the final vote. We may require a short recess to run the calculator after we get through voting on the budget. And if we do, I call the meeting back to order. And then we do the real business, which is authorizing the various parts of town government to do their job. And I'll also point out to you that the very last page in the town budget packet that you were handed contains an explanation written by Kelly Ross of each of those resolutions, kind of a summary, so that while you're listening to me drone on about them, and they have to be read, you know actually where we're going in a particular resolution. That said, I think I'm ready, just so I have it in my notes. Do the canvassers have a count in the room at this time?
$68.
68, thank you. Okay, so the first budget up for consideration is general government in the amount of $744,984. A motion for that amount would be in order.
So moved.
Is there a second? And a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the general government budget? There being none, all those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Finance Department, a budgeted amount of $368,814. A motion for that would be in order.
So moved.
Is there a second? I have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the finance budget? There being none, those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Social Services budget in the amount of $49,516. Motion for that amount, please.
So moved.
Is there a second? Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the Social Services budget? There being none, those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Planning budget in the amount of $124,420. Motion for that amount would be
So
in
moved.
order. Thank you. A second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the planning department budget? There being none, those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Libraries in the amount of $157,842.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the budget for libraries? There being none, those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Public Works in the amount of $1,414,066. A motion for that amount, please.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Is there any discussion on the Public Works Department budget? There being none, those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Parks and Recreation, $31,807.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? The discussion on the Parks and Recreation budget. There being none, those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Police Department, Police and Dispatch, in the amount of $1,552,128. A motion, please.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the Police and Dispatch budget? There being none, those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Police continued as animal control, $29,000. Motion for that amount, please.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion? There being none, those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Public safety in the amount of $322,780.
Gladly, motion to approve.
Is there a second? Motion and a second. Is there discussion on public safety? There being none, those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Miscellaneous transfers in the amount of $25,950. A motion for that amount, please.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion and a second. Is there discussion on miscellaneous transfers? There being none, those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Capital budget, the amount of $580,500. A motion for that amount, please.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the capital budget? There is.
Someone got to bring this up.
Try the microphone carefully. Got to turn the switch. The switch, the slider switch. Okay, we'll wing it without the microphone. Speak loudly, please.
Speak loudly. I'd like to make...
Identify yourself, please.
Oh, I'm Carol Morrow, Department of Human Services. I'd like to make an amendment to add $18,000 to the capital budget. Carol?
Just go ahead, just kind
I'd like to make an amendment to add $18,000 to the capital budget. I've been working on a grant with the state in order to get a senior and disability van for transportation. And this would cover our cost for what RIPTA is requiring for us to have the new van. RIPTA has received Federal Transit Administration funding for vans that will provide senior transportation. The vehicle that they are offering is a 2019 wheelchair accessible 9-passenger van. This is a $90,000 van that the town of Foster would be required to invest 20% of the cost. For Representative Chippendale, RIPTA is willing to reduce that amount to approximately $13,000 from the $18,000 that we would owe. I am requesting the full 20% at this point, which would be the $18,000, just to have as a safety cushion because of negotiations with RIPTA. This request is in response to an awarded grant from the state for the operation of the van to provide non-medical transportation. Initially, the plan was for RIPTA to donate an older out-of-service van to the town in support of this grant. Had I known about the change in plans and the added investment for the town, the cost would have been incorporated into the grant proposal. Unfortunately, that is not the case. They are not willing to do that at this point. The benefit of this investment to the town would be a brand new state-of-the-art van for a bargain price and be able to provide for this much-needed service to our residents. This van will provide for a means of residents to go to the bank, pick up prescriptions, visit the library, get their haircut, buy groceries, personal items, visit senior centers, pick up gifts for loved ones, things that we take for granted when we have access to our own cars. Eventually, all of us will be in this situation. Hopefully, we'll have people that can help us, but if we don't, it's nice to know that these services are available.
So I'll take that as a motion to add $18,000, an amendment to the motion on the floor. Is there a second to the
Second.
amendment? Second. Okay. Is there discussion on the amendment? Kathleen?
I was just curious who drives it and how is that funded?
The grant would provide for that. That's what I had requested. It would provide for the driver, it would provide for the insurance, it would provide for the gas, the maintenance, the administrative costs.
Who does that include? Is that just include
It's for seniors and people with disabilities that don't have other transportation, and it's for non-medical.
Helen?
Is the grant for one, to cover the cost for 1 year as far as the cost of gas and everything else? Will it cover additional years or would this be something the town has to absorb further on?
The grant covers 1 year with renewable for a second year. After that time, they were looking for sustainability. So we would have to look at either additional grants, additional fundraising, additional donations, but that would be my job.
Mr. Rogers, you have a question?
Well, not so much a question, more than a statement. This is something that councils in the past have looked at trying to do, and it was kind of costly, and I'm glad Carol looked into that. It's considerably lower than what we were trying to fund in past years. Most cities and towns do provide this service. For an example, Situate has 2 senior vans, and I think this may help Foster integrate with their senior center and help out working in conjunction. Like I said, the former councils have looked into this, and it just was tough. And our questions was how we were going to fund it. There were discussions with Situate. We almost discussed going in half with their van when they went from 1 to 2, but it didn't happen. I think this is good for the town, and I think I'd support it at this point as long as the grant's there. But at the end of the day, we do have to use caution moving forward with additional maintenance and stuff like that. But I think at this point, if it doesn't work out, after a couple of years, we could probably sell the van. If it didn't work, and at least
Yeah. RIPTA has us in a 5-year lien.
Recycle, yep.
So just to make sure that we're using it for the
Yep.
purposes that we intended, after the 5 years, we will then take ownership of the title, and it's ours to do what we want.
So I think at this point, to add on to that, it's something we can try and see if it works, and if it works and it gets support, I think it's the right direction to go to see if it fits for the town of Forster.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Can I just add to,
Sure.
initially, the plan is for just 1 day a week. So, you know, if we get funding, we can always expand that, but initially, it's just for the 1 day a week.
Any further discussion? Okay, we are voting on an amendment. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'll cut it down here. Carol has discussed this with me several times. We actually have it on the agenda for Thursday night's council meeting because there were some concerns. It hasn't quite been vetted out yet. And the concern is that it's a 5-year program, 2 years being, or 1 year being granted this year, and then possibly the next year. So our concern is, even though it's a great program, and how long is the town going to have to be, and where do we get that monies from? That would be my concern. So that would be what I would want to know more about, and I know that it's on Thursday night's agenda to discuss further.
Okay, another question.
Well, the question would be, I mean, the cost of the vehicle
Please
itself.
identify yourself.
Robert McPherson.
Thank you.
If the cost of the vehicle itself is being paid for by the grant, then really the only cost then is someone actually being able to drive it. So that,
There's also insurance.
Insurance,
There's
right.
maintenance of the vehicle, there's
Right.
gas.
I understand, but the cost is the bear, like the initial
I
cost
understand,
out.
I have no
Right.
objections to this.
Right.
My concern is
Long
after
term.
the long term.
Long term down the road, but
Right.
those are all small pieces. It's the cost of the vehicle itself is thousands of dollars. So if that's being paid for outright, then we're looking at small pieces down the road. And that's small beans for helping all the seniors that 1 day a week right now.
It's ultimately up to voters. I just have those concerns that I want to bring forward.
Absolutely.
Any other discussion? Kelly,
I know you've already spoken, is there anyone else?
I think you're good. Thank
Okay,
you.
so I actually think it's a wonderful idea, and I think it's great for the community and for seniors. However, I do have concerns, like Ms. Moore, I'd like to know, what would that cost be? Because we are committed to it for 5 years. So if we get 3, 4, and 5 as far as the grants, and then also capital, I've been in the capital budget. Where is that money coming from in capital? Because it's not like you can add to the capital. Capital is a limited lot of money. So if I can ask the town council, are we pulling this for something else? Is something else going to be cut? Because you were having a hard time budgeting everything that people were asking for in the first place. So that's kind of my concern, is that capital budget was already created, and that was already done through numerous meetings. So can I ask the budget and town council that, please?
May I?
You may. Please.
We had, it's on Thursday night's agenda, and we were looking at the contingency fund for funding this for this year. That would be my personal choice rather than putting it on the capital, because as you say, our capital is very tight. But again, it's up to the voters. I have no objections. I think it's a great thing. I do have some reservations. I have some concerns. They're not going to medical places, but we would probably still be bound by HIPAA. So the driver needs to be discreet. There's other red flags that I have concerns about. So that would basically be my concern. I would prefer seeing it coming at the council under contingency than being added onto our capital. I don't know if Kelly has anything more she'd like to add to that. since she's more-
It's not that we don't have the money in capital, it's just that we're spending a lot of money from capital. So we would have to, whatever you budget here would have to be funded from capital reserve. So it's not going to affect your tax levy this year, but it is going to come from your capital project fund.
Ms. Ryder.
Lynn, okay, sister. If people, no.
If the people approve this tonight, and as it has been a motion made from capital, and then tomorrow night, or, yeah, tomorrow, Thursday night, the council decides to vote against it or to change it to contingency, can you even do that if the people vote to put it into capital tonight, but then you change it to contingency?
Contingency, put in capital.
The money would remain unspent and then revert back to the capital project fund because it would be, the purpose for what it was set aside for would be abandoned.
All right, so it would be an extra 18,000 for the capital.
It would go back to the capital.
It would go,
project fund.
right, it would go back into the capital. So, okay, so it would actually be paid out of contingency, but we would be adding $18,000 to capital for, well, to go back into capital for nothing.
Would it go back right away, or does it
Two
have to wait?
things could happen. First of all, they could vote it, even though you're adding to the bottom line, it doesn't mean they have to spend it because it's a bottom line budget. They could decide,
They being the council.
the council on Thursday could decide to not move forward with that program, at which point in time that capital money will revert back to capital. Or the second thing being, they could decide to, three things. They could decide to use that capital. Or the third thing, they could decide to fund it with current year contingency funds that are still available. If they do that, then that money will no longer be necessary for capital and it would then in turn revert back.
Further questions?
Can I just have clarification on the capital? I'm
You
sorry.
may.
So, from my impression going to the meeting, you spent all the capital budget, like the amount that was set aside this year, 2%? Was it 2% capital budget that we were using?
That, well, we'll get to that, but that's an automatic transfer. yes.
Okay, so that's a transfer. And we were, like, people were being cut in different budgets because they were asking for, say, 100,000, they were receiving 60,000 or 80,000 because there wasn't enough money in the budget, capital budget. So I guess that's my concern. Is something else going to be reduced by the 18,000, or is that money, 18,000, going to be, it's not coming from the sky? So is it coming from another, someone else's capital, like, is something being cut? Am I making sense? Okay.
Go ahead, Phil.
What happens is with capital, the way it works is we have an automatic transfer into the capital project fund. That's separate from what you're actually spending on capital in the current year. Our concern is that what was going into capital is continually exceeds what we spend in capital. So this is in addition to that. So we are already budgeted to exceed capital, the capital transfer this year. So we are transferring, if you were to look at the department below it, we are transferring
$210,000.
$485,965 if you adopt that entire, including the additional $210,000 into capital, and we're funding $580,000 from that capital. So instead of funding $580,000, we would be funding $598,000. So it's just, you're using capital fund, you're using fund balance from the capital project fund. Yes.
Okay, one more.
The whole reason I'm asking at this point for the addition to the capital budget is just because of timing. If we had had the town council meeting today and this meeting on Thursday, we would already know what the vote would be about the contingency. If the council goes ahead and votes for the contingency, then we don't even need this money. But I felt like I had to come and ask for it tonight because I don't know what's going to happen on Thursday. And if I didn't ask tonight and it didn't get approved to go to contingency on Thursday, then we will have lost this opportunity.
Okay. I think I'll close discussion and call for a vote on the amendment, which is to add $18,000 to the capital budget. Those in favor of the amendment, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries. We're back to the main motion, and the amount now on the table for the capital budget, check me if I'm correct here, $598,500. Is there any discussion now on the main motion for $598,500? There being no discussion, those in favor of the amount, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are skipping a page, and we'll come back to capital. We're going to the Payne School Department budget, which is proposed in the amount of $3,335,337. Could I have a motion for that amount, please?
Motion to approve.
And a second? I have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the school department budget? There being none, those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Kelly, we have a slightly different number for capital now?
No, we don't,
We don't?
because it's not considered, 2% is exclusive of
Okay.
that capital.
Okay. So, there being no other changes, we'll now entertain a motion on the capital budget totaling $485,965.
So moved.
Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the capital budget? There being none, those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. That concludes our voting on expenditures. I will now move to the resolutions required of this meeting. Again, you have an explanation of each of these resolutions attached to the back of your budget.
You have to change the capital project transfer to the general.
Okay, yes, thank you. Let's do that before I start, so I won't forget. 598.5, right? Thank you. Okay, first resolution, property valuation reserve resolution. Resolved, it is hereby voted that the town treasurer of the town of Foster and hereby is authorized and directed to reserve and commit unexpended funds appropriated for property valuations in the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019 for the sole purpose of funding property valuations in future years. Is there a motion in support of the resolution?
So moved.
Second. A motion and a second. Those in favor of the resolution indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Contingency reserve resolution. Resolved, it is hereby voted that the town treasurer of the town of Foster be and hereby is authorized and directed to reserve and commit unexpended funds appropriated for contingencies for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019 for the sole purpose of funding contingencies in future years. It is further voted that the town treasurer of the town of Foster be and hereby is authorized and directed to utilize this reserve as needed with town council approval. Is there a motion for this resolution?
Motion to accept.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Yes.
Dennis Creation, Train Hollow Road. This is only for next year. It's not an ongoing resolution that remaining funds will carry forward.
We would vote on it the same resolution again next year,
Okay.
as I believe we did last year. Any other discussion? There being no further discussion, those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Capital project fund transfer resolution. Resolved, it is hereby voted that the town treasurer of the town of Foster be and hereby is authorized and directed to transfer to the general fund $598,500 from the capital projects fund for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020 for the purchase and improvements set forth in the capital program.
Motion to
for this
approve.
resolution.
Motion to approve.
And a second, thank you. Is there discussion on the resolution? There being none, those in favor indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Student population change reserve resolution. Resolved, it is hereby voted that the town treasurer of the town of Foster be and hereby is authorized and directed to reserve and commit $128,621 from the Foster Gloucester Regional School appropriation in fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020 for future changes of appropriation to the Foster Gloucester Regional School as a direct result in changes in student population. Motion for this resolution, please.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the resolution? There being none, those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Tax anticipation notes lines of credit resolution. Resolved, it is hereby voted that the town treasurer of the town of Foster be and is hereby authorized and directed to borrow any necessary amounts of money from time to time during the current year for the proper and appropriate transaction of the town's business in anticipation of taxes to be assessed as of December 31st, 2018, and any liability created under this authority shall be paid not later than 1 year from the date of issuance. Is there a motion for this resolution?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? There being none, those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Excuse me for just 1 second. Okay, last one. Resolved, it is hereby voted that the electors of the town of Foster qualified to vote on any proposition to impose a tax for the expenditure of money in a town meeting legally assembled on the 7th day of May 2019, hereby order the levy and collection of a tax on the rateable property of said town of Foster in a sum not less than $13,300,000 nor more than $13,400,000. Said taxes for ordinary expenses and charges, and for the payment of interest and indebtedness in whole or in part of said town of Foster, and for other purposes authorized by law. The tax assessors shall apportion said levy on the assessed valuations on the inhabitants and rateable property of said town of Foster as of the 31st day of December 2018 at 12 o'clock midnight, said date being known as the date of assessment of town valuations. The tax assessor shall, upon completion of said apportionment date, certify and sign the same and deliver to and deposit the same in the office of the town clerk. The town clerk, on receipt of the same, shall forthwith make a copy of same and deliver it to the town treasurer, who shall issue and affix to said copy a warrant under her hand, directed to the collector of taxes of said town of Foster, commanding her to proceed and collect taxes of the persons and estates liable therefore. Said taxes assessed in a portion on the 31st day of December 2018 shall be due and payable on the 15th day of July 2019. All taxes remaining unpaid on the first day of August 2019 shall carry until collected at a penalty at the rate of 12% per year upon such unpaid taxes. Said taxes may be paid in 4 quarterly installments. The first installment of 25% on or before the 15th day of July 2019, and the remaining installments as follows: 25% on or before the 15th day of October 2019, 25% on or before the 15th day of January 2020, and the last 25% on or before the 15th day of April 2020. In the event that the remaining tax or any subsequent installment is not paid when due, then the whole tax or any remaining unpaid balance shall then become due and payable immediately and shall bear interest at the rate of 12% per year. Interest will be charged on all late payments in their entirety and shall not be calculated on a limited per year basis. All taxes not paid on or before the first day of January 2020 for levy on the assessed valuations as of the 31st day of December 2017 shall be collected by said tax collector according to law. In the event that payment is made by check and the check is for any reason dishonored or refused payment by the bank on which it is drawn, the collector shall then add a bad check charge in the amount of $30 to the taxpayer account. The Town Council of Foster hereby authorizes the sale of tax liens in bulk to RIMFAC in accordance with Rhode Island General Laws 44573 sub B. Is there a motion for the resolution?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the resolution? There being none, those in favor of the resolution indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much.